They cross the Mediterranean by the thousands, every day, every week. It's a continuous mass exodus of refugees, destination Europe. It's a perilous journey organized by an international mafia of human traffickers.
It will continue and continue because it's a lot of money.
It can only be estimated how many people don't make it and drown. They want to get to Europe, no matter the cost.
To cross this Red Sea is 50-50.
Anywhere in Europe, I just want to make a living.
There are tens of thousands of refugees imprisoned under inhumane conditions on the Libyan coast. Since the state collapsed, refugees in Libya have been outlawed.
We need help from United Nations.
Again and again, dead bodies are washed ashore, people who drown during their escape, unsettling images that destroy the illusion of a manageable crisis. Europe intends to end the countless deaths in the Mediterranean. Sea rescue ships cross between Italy and the Libyan coast, but they cannot stop the new mass migration.
This is just a small drop, I guess, of people who are going to Europe. So, well, that's something the world leaders have to sit down and figure out.
So far, there is no plan on how to avoid this mass exodus. All the helpers can do is save as many people as possible. These days, the Mediterranean Sea between North Africa and Italy is both a transit zone and a mass grave. How much longer can the world bear to watch this madness? Start of work for soldiers of the Libyan Coast Guard. The first patrol leaves at 8 o'clock in the morning. On good days, they're able to save lives. On bad ones, they only manage to recover dead bodies. They cover the main routes of the refugees' boats.
We can stem the flow of migrants and therefore reduce the amount of deaths. Our goal is to save people, but nobody manages to stop illegal migration 100%. It's an international problem.
Often the refugees' rubber rafts get in distress after just a few miles. If they're lucky, the Coast Guard spots them. More than 100 people with many non-swimmers on a boat that's not seaworthy. After their rescue, the refugees are taken back to Libya by the Coast Guard. Most of them come from Eritrea, Nigeria or the Gambia, and they paid a lot of money for their transport to human traffickers who make a fortune from the hardship of others. Sometimes the soldiers also encounter single refugees, castaways who have lost everything. This man doesn't own anything anymore except his T-shirt. But way too often, the Coast Guard arrive too late. Then they only recover dead bodies, images that give an idea of this tragedy. Officials talk of more than 700 people who drowned before the Libyan coast in 1 week alone. An end to these countless deaths isn't in sight, as the refugees' suffering is too great.
We try to explain to them that the crossing is perilous, but to no avail. All they see is the destination that they want to reach. They only care for Europe. They may see others die, but they still intend to get to Europe, no matter what.
As the sea becomes too unsettled, the soldiers have to return to land after 1 hour. The Libyan Coast Guard doesn't hold any ocean-going ships anymore, as the big marine fleet was destroyed by NATO air forces 5 years ago in their fight against former dictator Gaddafi. All that's left are a few small patrol vessels.
During rescue missions, we have to sometimes distribute up to 120 people on our 2 boats. We risk our lives to save others. That's all we can do. Europe promised help. but we didn't see any so far.
They're left alone with a disaster that can be seen in many places. The beach near the Libyan coastal town of Garabouli. The victims of the growing refugee crisis are washed ashore here. People who lost their lives on their way to Europe. Theoretically, each person is supposed to be identified via a DNA sample, but there is practically no personnel for that, so many dead bodies are just buried on site. The European Union has reacted to the worsening situation. For months now, the Norwegian oil rig supply ship CM Pilot has been crossing between Italy and Libya. The ship is part of the Frontex operation Triton, which is supposed to protect the European external borders. But the crew mostly does rescue missions now. Detective Inspector Paul Erik Teigen is in charge.
If the boats get problem in the sea, they can't swim, so they will drown. So it's easy. It's good to do the rescue and get them on board. And it's not our to judge what will happen later or why they came.
The ship's cargo area can accommodate about 1,000 castaways. The crew consists of 11 policemen and 10 soldiers of the Norwegian Coast Guard. There's also a doctor, a paramedic and a nurse on board. When there is no emergency, they train.
In the missions in the SARS, we have to work for a long time. Maybe sometimes 24 hours. And then it's good to have the good health so you can stand in it.
Fit for a fight for survival. Without the men of the CM Pilot, even more people would drown in the Mediterranean. Since the sea has become calmer, the number of refugees has risen significantly. About 40,000 people have been saved since the beginning of the year. It's always the same procedure. The refugees are put in tiny boats in Libya. The people smugglers then place a call for rescue, and if they're lucky, the refugees are picked up by Frontex. The next day it's a case of emergency for the CM Pilot. The Coast Guard in Rome received an emergency call that was sent off the Libyan coast. Nobody knows at this time how many people are in distress at sea.
We're getting a call from ICC that we are going to a position very far away, but I don't know yet what it is. But it's a boat, wooden boat, or no, we don't know. It's a call. So we're turning the boat around now and go south for maximum speed. And but you see, the farthest away, we will use 12 hours.
The ship that is usually supposed to transport supplies to oil rigs sails in the direction of Libya with a speed of 15 knots. Nobody yet knows what drama will await them there. The coastal town of Garabouli is the hotspot of the Libyan human traffickers' mafia. The business of profiting from people's hardship is conducted from here. Garabouli isn't only a place for the abusers, but also the victims. In the town's hinterland, behind barbed wire and high walls, is a detention centre for illegal immigrants. Basically, it's a prison for refugees nobody wants to take in. Whoever gets caught without a visa in Libya or picked up by the Coast Guard in the Mediterranean is deported here. A prison for migrants whose escape mostly began years earlier.
I sell some of my properties in the Gambia to come here. I had been working for 24 years as a nurse. I sell my property like my local pharmacy, and I came to this place. And I spent almost 6 months in jail, in prison in Libya. So, which makes me very surprised, and now I want to go home to see my family. I'm suffering here. Yes, hungry, starving, hunger, sickness, and they're beating us all the time.
There are also rumours that inmates are forced to call their relatives at home in order to collect money for their release. They've all had their experiences with governmental arbitrariness.
I want to working in troubles. Just they catch the policemen at Torhona about 1 month. Just again another prisoners 1 month. Just now again about 28 days. Just now coming again in this one. Just I lost everything. All one guys died. Ethiopian.
Not only men are imprisoned here. 20 women, a toddler and an 8-month-old baby arrived today. The women are mostly from Somalia, Eritrea and Ethiopia. They've come to Libya via Sudan and the Sahara Desert. It's the eastern main route to get to the sea.
The way through the desert was very exhausting. When we reached the boats at the coast, we were arrested. We've been imprisoned for 4 months now and suffer a lot. There's hardly any food or water. We need help to get out. We're only being moved from one prison to the next.
The prison officers don't allow us to enter the prison cells. For now, we're only allowed to film the yard and the kitchen. A Libyan private company does the catering. The staff is from Sudan.
We have marmalade, macaroni, sugar and rice.
What about milk and fruit?
We'll get that tomorrow.
After some persuading, we're finally allowed to enter the cell block. The sleeping quarters are hopelessly overcrowded. The smell is ghastly. Many of the inmates are sick and suffer from scabies. It's inhumane in every respect.
This place is very suffocated. Almost 101 people are staying here. Last night we didn't sleep because there is no any space to sleep. There is no space here. It's very suffocated. It's very hot.
A total of 630 inmates are crowded in here. Their space for sleeping is about 300 square meters, which is 2 people per square meter. They're only allowed to enter the yard during meal times. It's obvious that the Libyan unity government is unable to cope with providing for the refugees. But still, the German Chancellor would like to form a cooperation with them to strike a deal to stop the mass migration, to send people like these children back to their home countries. Many of the prisoners are horrified by this idea.
If I return back to Eritrea, hopefully they kill us. Not only the whole people, killed by the ruling party, okay? So, my plan is to go to Europe, not to return back to Eritrea.
There are already 23 detention centres like this in Libya, waiting rooms for a transit to a better life. The crowded buses depart in the evening. Destination, Niger this time.
I want to go home, but I don't have any money. No phone. Nothing. I worked and earned 400 dinar, but the police confiscated the money. I want to return to Niger too.
The men are supposed to be deported to their home country. They're gathered in Tripoli and then transported back through the Sahara Desert. In Libya, it's also possible to make money with the refugees. 25-year-old Zainab from Nigeria was released from prison by a rich Libyan. Now she's supposed to work for him. She left her home 6 months ago, but already on the way to Libya, she was in for a shock.
I got this. But so they hear many people they talk say now their place, their country. My friend won't come and go say now I share will work. But I call my friend. I say why you do me like that? But he know me from Nigeria. He told me say no. So my friend fights for Agadez. From Agadez, she said she sent me go.
Back in Nigeria, there's only Zainab's mother. It's their first phone call for months.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, Mom. The police caught me.
What did you say?
The police caught me. I spent 3 months in prison.
How did that happen?
When we returned from work, the police came to our quarters and arrested us all.
And what shall we do now?
I don't know. All I can do is pray.
Zainab isn't her real name, as her real name would tell that she's a Christian. Many migrants are afraid of that in strictly Islamic Libya.
If I no say in Nigeria,
Every Nigerian who comes to Libya says that he or she's Muslim.
go kill. But if you tell them say he be Muslim,
Otherwise, the Libyans would kill the Christians in prison.
inside prison. But if you say now you be Christian, even they go kill them.
Therefore, nobody
That's
tells.
why all the guy in Libya, if he has, nobody could say he be Christian.
Zainab hopes that she can save enough money with her new employer to return to Nigeria. Then she hopes to get to Europe by plane. Despite the new unity government, Libya is a broken state, a legal black hole that isn't able to take on a fight with the criminal human trafficker gangs, and also not willing due to corruption. The times when dictator Muammar al-Gaddafi ruled the country with brutality and his oil millions are over. The man with his fantasy uniforms was swept away in 2011 by the Arab Spring, brought down by his own citizens. Tripoli during the year of change, after Gaddafi and before the chaos, with religion in the center. In the end, the despised dictator was publicly exposed. Libyan rebels pulled the fleeing Gaddafi out of a tunnel and maltreated him in front of the cameras. A short time later, he was dead. His people hoped that freedom and democracy would follow. But instead, Libya has been drowning in a political and religious swamp. Aside from the unity government GNA, there are two other competing governments today. Also, there is a militia of about 1,000 men and the so-called Islamic State on the coast. Things couldn't be any more non-transparent. Back at the Mediterranean, the CM pilot, 4 hours still to their destination. Below deck, the Italian liaison officer briefs the crew. The Coast Guard in Rome received other emergency calls last night, a few miles off the Libyan coast.
So at the moment, I counted 17 events, and we're riding in this position, 3202-1232, that by phone they told me that there are about at least 10 boats.
10 boats means several hundred castaways.
It's for sure that we're going to go out in Azar, so prepare all the gear, prepare deck. Everybody who has got some responsibilities for on deck, do the job and set out the stuff.
In the meantime, Rome received more than 23 emergency calls, all from the same position.
It's been 8, 10 rubber boats that's in a distress in a 10 nautical mile circle. So we know for sure that an Italian Coast Guard ship is going down there also, Dattilo, and it's also a civilian ship like this that worked for the oil industry in Libya is also on the sea.
A short while later, the Norwegians encounter the Dattilo. The ship already picked up 1,000 refugees, and the civilian vessel Asso also had to take in several hundred people, as the Italians didn't have enough space to accommodate all. The rescued are now supposed to move from the Asso to the CM pilot. It's a tricky maneuver, bringing the two ships alongside each other. In the meantime, the Italian Navy burns the empty rafts. On deck, the crew prepares for the assignment. The Norwegians store their weapons and protection vests in 2 containers. Police officer Espen Ustop distributes the equipment. The Libyan waters are considered dangerous, and there may also be a certain threat from the refugees.
We are now close to the Libyan shoreline and also close protection for the rubber boats or the other boats if there is a threat on board the boat. It's for self-protection, mace. This is a telescopic baton. And I have a holster for my pistol. I have handcuffs. This is for magazines for the pistols. This is my flashlight and an extra pair of handcuffs. And a multi tool. Yes, this is an MP5 machine gun and a Heckler & Koch pistol.
A disinfection gate is prepared. The helpers wear protective suits, rubber gloves and protective masks to prevent possible infection. The back part of the deck will be the quarantine zone. Up to 1,000 refugees can be accommodated here. It's also the Norwegians' duty to protect the European external borders. Therefore, every refugee must be registered and receives a numbered wristband.
Probably about around 1,000, plus minus. So we need a different color from different boats.
When it got many people at the same time, like now, so many boats, it's difficult it's a challenge to rescue them from the boats and take them over here to this boat. Luckily today it's not so many waves.
They attempt to dock the ships alongside each other so that the refugees can be moved quickly. Many of them haven't had anything to eat or drink for days.
Through the hatch and over to our hatch. One on one, and there's a lot of people. It's going to be a tight for our boat.
The Norwegians can only guess how many people there are on the Asso. They estimate a total of 1,000. But the maneuver fails. The risk is too great.
It does not work because the waves are too hard. As you see, the boat, they're not stable enough, so we have to go by ourselves and do the rescue by our small boats.
It will be a long day for the rescue team. Only 20 people fit in one boat. Life jackets are distributed on the Asso, and the refugees need to wait their turn. A rope defines the waiting area. During the first 2 hours, the Norwegians only get the women and children over to their ship. It's a humanitarian shuttle service, and in the end, they count 125 women and 7 underage girls. Among them also 2 babies.
Immediately when they come aboard, we take off the life vests, and they are stepping into the bath here with some disinfection for the foot, for the hands and the feet. And after that, we give them a number, and they are moved forward to the registration table, where they are, where we have to write down the number, and if they have some things, belongings, and which country they are from. And if the child is under 16, we also try to write down the age.
Many of the rescued are dehydrated and totally exhausted. The men are next. It's the biggest group today. Like the women and children before, they also have nothing left except their clothes. No valuables, no papers, not even shoes. Still, during the examination, the police officers try to collect as much information from the refugees as possible.
Okay. Where are you going? Sweden? Germany?
Germany.
France?
No France. Germany.
Where are you from?
Me?
Cameroon?
Cameroon.
They use maps for further orientation.
256. 256. Guinea, Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire? Yeah. How old are you? Are you over 20? your
get the numbers on the tag from them and write down the nationality, and if they have any evidence which they give back, and write everything down and keep track of how many from each nationality, how many women, how many children, how many men. Now we have 308 on board.
Almost all of them come from Africa, from countries south of the Sahara Desert and from civil war areas. Therefore, safety is crucial.
When there are so many people on deck, of course, that's quite a challenge. There will be some small arguments, but it stops as soon as we get down and tell them that this is unacceptable. So we just want to make everyone to be assured that there is no room for arguments or fights here. We want everyone to stay safe.
We're back at the coastal town of Garabuli. With its 20 kilometers of beach, this is the ideal starting point for a passage to Europe. For some, this is the beginning of the most important part of their long odyssey. For others, it's the end, as the sea washes the bodies of those who didn't make it ashore again. Omar, a local, is one of the few who openly talks about the dead bodies. Many of his neighbors are afraid of the people smugglers with their guns. But Omar doesn't want to keep quiet anymore, since the once beautiful beach in front of his house has become a mass grave.
At this spot, we buried 4 dead bodies that had been lying there for 2 weeks. The people from the Red Crescent had wrapped them in bags, ready for transport. But when the bodies started to rot, we buried them. We all returned to God after all.
The aid organization does its best to care for the dead, but meanwhile there are too many to give all of them a proper burial. The local organization lacks almost everything: personnel, time and suitable 4x4 vehicles to take the bodies away from the sandy ground.
We don't receive any support from the government in regards to humanitarian work. Therefore, we're thankful if people support the Libyan Red Crescent. We have a lot of volunteers working for us, but we need financial aid so that we can keep up our work in the future.
So, at the Libyan coast, a handful of volunteers gets rid of the ramifications of a failed international refugee policy. The plan to take DNA samples from all the dead for identification has long since been abandoned. Many of the victims remain nameless. It's a tragic situation, but it will get worse. For the refugees, high season has just begun. Already the black body bags are sometimes left lying in the heat of summer for weeks. It's no high season for humanity and solidarity. Omar couldn't look away any longer. In the end, he buried the 4 bodies under a dune.
There was no other way. The smell gets worse and worse in summer, and no one knows where it comes from. We would love to give them a dignified burial somewhere else. We're all human beings after all. We are humans.
More than 2,500 people have drowned this year already. Another hotspot for refugees is the Libyan town of Sabrata, west of Tripoli. The people on the CM pilot also started their passage from here. Now mainly young men are taken aboard.
I think we have around 660 on board, or 500.
on CM Pilot, and we have several hundred left on this boat.
At the end of the rescue operation, there will be more than 1,000 refugees on board. About 800 of them are young men.
Can I have a look at your hand?
After the registration, there's a quick medical checkup.
Is it itching?
Yeah, last time
yeah, it's itching. Itch?
Yeah.
Can I have a look at your stomach? Okay, is it itching? No, just here. Okay.
We're checking for scabies, and we check for if they have fever or if they seem sick. If they can walk and talk and feel fine, then they are good and sent back to the other people to get food and water.
This is food for you for 2 days. So you eat slowly. And for the night. Okay, please move forward.
The healthy ones need to close ranks. Every square metre counts, as it's still not been determined how many more refugees there are.
Sir, please remove your stuff and you sit down. Sir, right. Thank you. Likewise. Sir, you sit down here. Feet against your stomach. Take your feet against your stomach. Thank you. You sit down. Longer back, more back, more back.
We have no other choice because we have to stack them as tight as possible to get everybody on board.
Yeah.
And then we'll see in the end if there's some extra space, we can give them more extra space. But for now, the most important thing is to get as many as possible on the ship.
Every one of them hopes for a better life abroad. They abandoned a home without a future.
The problem in Africa is more than African. Economically, politically, religionally, so many things. At least for someone to have decided to cross this Red Sea, it's 50-50. That's to tell you the problem we are facing over there. So that's why we just want to run away, and so many other things that made us to decide to cross this Red Sea. It's either we die or you succeed.
Any country in Europe, anywhere in Europe, I just want to make a living. I just want to make a living, to be hardworking, so I can go back and get something for my wife and my baby so that they can have something to eat.
To help our parents, that's why we decided to say that we want to go to Europe, because Europe have more opportunity than Africa.
A man from Liberia and his little son also took their chances on this perilous journey.
Alone with this kid? Yes. Your father? Your father?
Yes,
your son? Okay.
Yes,
you come with me. You will have our own section, okay? Come this way.
Because of the Ebola sickness, my wife sick. She was pregnant anyway, actually. She was pregnant. They stigmatized, provocation everywhere. I had Ebola, my son had Ebola. That's why I run away from my country.
Alone with his father, without his mother, on a rescue ship. What a distressful situation. Many refugees had to hold out in Libya for a long time.
I was beaten up in Libya excessively. I have a broken bone here in my legs, my 2 legs. I can't walk very well. Yeah, this one is broken now. It's cracked. You see there's a lot of sore here in my legs.
Libya, they're killing people every day. They killed my mother in Libya. They killed my mother. I lost my sister. I only have one sister. I don't know where she went to.
Since the start in Libya, there was no peace. There was no freedom. It has been always the same for black people. You don't walk in the street alone. You don't walk freely. You don't do anything in peace. Sometimes you got set up. Sometimes you got caught by those small boys because they have arms everywhere. So it was not easy. From start to end, it was not really safe and easy.
Shortly before nightfall, the last refugees come aboard the CM Pilot. In the end, every square metre on deck is occupied. It's a shipload of rescued people. Everybody is relieved that the operation went well. The crew was on duty for 12 hours non-stop, a tough mission.
It was a very long day. It was we never had so many migrants on the boat before. I don't know what time it is. Very proud of the guys. We have done a very nice job, I think.
You see their faces while they're coming on board, and it's quite special.
And I'm happy with the way we are acting towards them. The best feeling in the world.
The CM pilot reached a new record with 1,017 people on board. But the crew of the Asso lost a whole working day, and no one will compensate them for it. The Libyan capital of Tripoli is still the central assembly point for African refugees. In the past, oil wealth and Gaddafi's politics of open borders attracted many foreign workers who were welcome back then. But everything changed. Most Africans in the city don't have a visa anymore and are in constant fear of being arrested. At the same time, they are a whole army of low-paid workers. Official institutions estimate that about 150,000 of them are planning to leave Libya, preferably for Europe. Hakim and Ganiu are two of them. They come from Nigeria and dream of a future far from Africa. Without the low-paid workers, hardly any line of business in Tripoli would survive. Hakim and Ganiu specialized in setting up and dismantling air conditioning systems for wealthy Libyans, but they don't get any approval. On the contrary.
No, sometimes they harass you. Because you are not a white like them, you are black, so sometimes they harass you. And some small children themselves, if you see, sometimes they just look at you, make a stone and throw. And if you talk to the elders, they will say, okay. So not well, that's all kinds is not in Nigeria. If somebody misbehaves to you as a holder, then you have to be punished. But now, not here, not like that.
The Nigerian men get their low-paid assignments from their Libyan boss. They both earn about 25 to 35 euros a day. In their eyes, things can only get better.
I don't even know anything about Europe.
I don't know anything about Europe.
You don't know anything?
But when I get here...
But I also didn't know anything about Libya before I came here.
Libyan, I don't even know anything.
I learned a lot.
But when I get here...
If I got to Europe, I would also try to learn as much as I can. I really wish I could go there.
I wish.
In the evening, their boss takes them back to their accommodation. Don't attract attention is the name of their game, as Hakim needs his wages to support his 3 children at home. The two friends share a single room. Women from Nigeria are accommodated behind the curtain. Nobody has a real plan for the future. Except one, perhaps.
Well, everything is in your hand. You know, when you have a dream or maybe you are thinking something, maybe you want to become rich, you become big man, and so on and so forth. But everything is on the hand. So everything there is God's hand. You know, God proposed and God promised everything.
As soon as they've saved enough money, they intend to risk the passage. In the meantime, the Norwegian vessel CM Pilot has received orders to take the refugees to Salerno in Italy. The result of their mission: more than 1,000 migrants from 22 nations, most of them from Nigeria. Nobody from Syria or Iraq. But this isn't the end of the international refugee crisis.
This is something that the leaders of the world need to figure out. And ordinary people like us, we just have to do the best we can from day to day in a meeting with these people.
36 hours until their arrival in Salerno. The Norwegians are well aware that the European rescue ships are part of the human traffickers' calculations.
Could it be attract the smugglers to be more active?
Of course, if they see it's a bad commercial if somebody drowns, but we up in Europe we can't live with the boat turning over each day, and you see all the people on the deck today, and if the rubber boat not have been rescued, they will for sure have to go down, and nobody of the migrants can swim, so it's many lives.
Paul Erik Teigen and his crew have saved more than 2,000 people in 1 month alone. In early May, the Norwegians encountered this totally overloaded vessel.
Women and children first.
The people were selected one by one.
Hey, hey.
The transfer was very risky as everybody wanted to come aboard.
Wait. Trekk unna. Wait. Sit now. Sit now.
If they all moved forward, the vessel was at risk of sinking. Therefore, babies, children and women were selected first. All others had to wait their turn. During the CM pilot's passage to Salerno, the Norwegian police investigate, as most of the time traffickers hide among the refugees. The police officers interview migrants who could be of help for their investigation.
It could be people that is good in English, that could be good to ask about who organized the trip. It could be a witness inside the boat that can tell us something about who is important, who is steering the boat, who was behind this trip. And it can be people that are facilitators, what we call them, that we know for sure is behind the smuggling of the migrants.
2 men are under suspicion. They were the only ones wearing shoes. All the others were barefoot. Probably the 2 have a special status. Arrival at Salerno harbour. A dream comes true for the refugees. Without the Frontex ships, they would never have made it here. For some, it took years to get to Italy. One of the suspects sets foot on European soil as well, but his shoes are his downfall. The Italian police already await the alleged human trafficker.
We tell when they're going down on Italian ground, we tell the police that that's the guy. The police are taking them to an office nearby and will question them about what they were doing on the boat and where they come from and what was their task on the boat. It's very important to know who is behind this smuggler and who is earning the money and who is making all the planning for the trip.
The second suspect gets ashore as well. First, he tries to hide among the refugees, but not for long. The plainclothesmen arrest him. It's a tiny success in the fight against the global network of human traffickers. But so far, there is no plan on how to stop this huge mass exodus.